today's video, I want to talk about tennis props. So what do I mean by tennis props? These are things that we're going to be using on the tennis court to improve our game. Now these things can include cones, ladders, hurdles, boxes or steppers we're going to jump off, or different type of plastic lines that can separate the court in different areas. And in today's video, I want to give you my opinion on whether these props can improve your game or not. I'm a big fan of cones. This is a great way to work on your directional control, or also if you split the court up in different sections, this is a fantastic way to improve your directional control. I encourage anyone to practice in that way. Now when it comes to these other things such as ladders, boxes, or hurdles that we're going to be jumping over and somehow improve our game, my answer whether this is helpful or not is quite complex. So let's just say, for example, that I, at my age of 44 years old, start practicing by jumping over the hurdles and doing ladders every day and doing all kinds of fitness related drills on the court with these props. Will my footwork and my overall fitness get better? It absolutely will, of course. These are great exercises and they will of course improve my fitness. However, any of these exercises will teach me absolutely nothing when it comes to tennis specific footwork. Now this doesn't matter for me because I already know how to move intuitively. I learned tennis specific footwork more than 30 years ago, so this is not a problem for me. But the question is, if you are a recreational level player who doesn't have good footwork yet, or you're a junior who doesn't have good footwork yet, these type of drills will do absolutely nothing to teach you tennis specific footwork. And guys, think about it logically. The movements that you're doing, for example, on a ladder or when you're jumping over hurdles, those movements do not exist on the tennis court as I demonstrated in the intro of this video. If you try to make any of those movements and try to hit a ball at the same time, you're gonna fall down and possibly hurt yourself. And guys, this is the absolute truth. When it comes to tennis footwork, this has to be an intuitive process. There's absolutely no way to play tennis and think about your feet at the same time. If you ever try to execute any type of steps and at the same time track the ball and also try to hit the ball, it's absolutely impossible to accomplish the thought process that's required to make certain steps happen and at the same time do all these other things. There's simply not enough time for that, and it's something that's absolutely impossible to do. So what happens instead is that players do not think of their feet. They spend absolutely no time even setting their strokes up. So they're not aware whether they're doing open stance shots or closed stance shots. They're not aware of how many steps they're taking to the ball. They're not aware which foot is coming first, which foot is coming second. All this stuff is happening naturally. All this stuff is happening intuitively. However, one thing that all these players have in common that play at the high level and who possess intuitive footwork is that they all play with high intensity, something that is lacking big time at the recreational level. So recreational players and even some junior level players will often be called flat-footed, and this is how your footwork is going to go wrong. And most of the time players, they will move when the ball is away from them. They will start running towards the ball and maybe even get back to the middle, but in between the shots there's often a flat-footed stance where they're just simply waiting for the ball like this, and this is a lack of intensity that's going to translate into really bad tennis specific footwork. So the key to make your footwork intuitive is to be ready to move. You constantly have to be under intensity, or what I call electricity. You never want to allow yourself to have your heels touch the ground. You want to be on your toes. You want to have a stance where your upper body is slightly down, your hands are in front, and something that I call the sprinter stance. You want to be ready to explode when you need to, but also you got to be constantly moving even when you're not hitting, even when you're not tracking the ball. This is something that you absolutely need as a tennis player. Just take a look at any professional player when they're rallying. You will never see them flat-footed unless it's Federer. He's sometimes maybe the only guy out there who likes to stand around at times. But then when Federer plays with intensity, he more than anyone else is bouncing around like crazy and he moves his feet exceptionally well. Maybe he has some of the best footwork in the history of the game. So take a look at the professional level players, how they're moving, and don't try to copy the amount of steps they're taking towards the ball. Don't try to copy which foot they're going first with. I guarantee you these players are not spending 1 second thinking about these things. These are intuitive processes that take place, and even the fact that they're moving all the time and playing with intensity, this is also something that is in their muscle memory. They're not even thinking about that. This is what naturally happens when they play tennis, because from early on, when they were juniors, they started playing like this, and they understand that there's no other way to play high-level tennis but to play with high intensity and also not think about your feet. And then throughout the years, as you continue to play tennis, this type of footwork does not only get more ingrained, but it also tends to improve as time goes on. The interesting thing about my own game is that while I'm getting slower with my age, my footwork is actually getting better. So there's a difference between speed and footwork. Footwork is the amount of adjustments you are making in order to be in the perfect position to strike the ball. That is footwork. When it comes to speed, it's, for example, when you're sprinting down a drop shot. So obviously I've gotten slower with time, but through all the years of practice, my footwork has become more accurate and better over the years. So it's really important that you understand the distinction that I'm making in this video. All these drills that I demonstrated in the intro, those are great things to do, and they will improve your balance, they will improve your agility, and they will improve your overall fitness. If you already possess intuitive footwork, if you are an advanced player, doing these drills will indirectly help you move better on the court. However, if you are a novice to tennis and don't possess tennis-specific footwork yet, these type of drills will do absolutely nothing to teach you the tennis-specific footwork that you need in order to play better tennis. So what you need to do in order to learn the intuitive footwork that every high-level player has in common is that you, number one, need high intensity. So you can't catch yourself standing on your heels. Also, you need to be ready. You can't be straight up like this, waiting for the ball. You got to be in a ready position that gives your body the opportunity to react properly. Also, another important thing that's connected to your footwork is the ability to track the ball and follow the ball wherever the ball is. So those three things will give you the best chance to learn to move intuitively on the court. So guys, the title of this video was Tennis Props. And whether you're a coach watching this or you're a player who does a lot of training that includes props, I want you to think about the beauty of playing on a tennis court that has nothing on it. Here, let me show you. This is something that you've seen a million times, but now try to soak it in. Take a look at this court. Now I want you to imagine an opponent on the other side. That opponent is going to be hitting a ball back to you. When you are tracking that ball, your concentration is solely on that incoming ball. There's absolutely no way you could even look down to see what your feet are doing. When you're working with props, whether it be a ladder, whether it be jumping on boxes or hurdles, you have to look down to make sure that you're executing those steps correctly. This is absolutely impossible to do when it comes to playing tennis. Your concentration must be solely on the incoming ball, and what happens to your feet will happen intuitively. James Blake once said, "The best way to get in tennis shape is to play tennis." There's a lot of truth in that, because let's face it, what are we training for? We're training for match play. So what you have to do in your training is try to recreate what happens in match play in your training sessions. Now, this doesn't mean that you only have to play matches. You can do drills, you can do many different things on the court, but it must be realistic where your focus is on the incoming ball and you're not thinking about your feet or making certain jumps or steps consciously. And there's another reason why training with props is not the optimal way to train for tennis. Let me give you the definition of a prop. It is an object used on stage or screen by actors during a performance or screen production. Now, in the world of comedy, the best comedians in the world look down upon comedians that use props on stage. And the reason why this is something that's frowned upon is because the props are used to enhance the comedy. In other words, the comedy by itself is not good enough or funny enough. So those type of comedians need the help of props to get laughs. Now I can make a direct comparison to tennis training. Whether you're a coach or a player, if you heavily depend on props in your training to perform at your best, you are doing it in a way that's artificial. You need to learn to create the maximum amount of intensity without any artificial enhancements, or to put it simply, just play tennis.